Hey everybody, welcome to Away Games, a Chicago Cubs, and these days largely just baseball podcast, hosted by two comedians who live in New York but love the Cubs. My name is Adam Amawala. I'm one of them. I'm back from my trip to the Dominican Republic where nobody likes baseball, and I'm here with Kevin McCaffrey, the other guy. We're both other guys in this podcast.
We're all the other guys. Were people in the Dominican talking about the current playoffs going on? Was anyone watching the baseball?
They were. I was talking to anybody who was willing to talk to me, and I was also watching some games in Spanish, which was a lot of fun.
I bet it was. I wonder if there's a Spanish John Smoltz who hates the game, and who just is. It feels like it would be harder to imagine for some reason. Just a real Eeyore of a Spanish announcer. I feel like typically the Spanish announcer enthusiasm is top shelf.
Just Juan Smoltz.
Yeah, it's just like when Bugs Bunny pretends to be someone else. He's just wearing a sombrero with a fake mustache, just hi, I'm a different guy. And there's no chance John Smoltz speaks a word of Spanish. I'm gonna say no. I mean, it would be weird if he didn't pick up a couple words in, but if anyone couldn't, I believe it's John Smoltz.
The funny thing about it is, and by the way, please do follow us at Away Games Pod on Twitter and Instagram for all sorts of hot takes. Takes that are, as John Smoltz would say, yes. En fuego.
He sure would. John Smoltz is the John Smoltz for other sports. It covers all the sports. It's sort of a mashup that I don't want to hear.
But I watched, so at the resort that we were staying at, there was a sports bar that was literally just called Sports Bar.
This is what I'm talking about.
It looked very much like, how can I describe this? It either looked like you were on a movie set where they can't have anything branded.
Yes.
So everything was just generic helmets and logos that don't really mean anything. Or it looked very much like that part of Applebee's where they just have whatever local high school team shit on the wall.
Hell yeah. No, I love that.
Great.
That in between where you live and where I live in Astoria, I believe there's a bar called just the Irish Whiskey Bar. Have you seen that? Yeah. It's just called that. Irish Whiskey Bar.
Perfect.
It's
what more do you need to know?
Yeah, it tells you what's happening here. That's the sports bar. They have pictures of sports, almost like Hard Rock is a music cafe. It's just anything, right.
I actually thought you were going to refer to the Astoria Applebee's. Are you familiar with it?
Well, I know it exists. It's by the movie theater.
Yeah, it's there. So in Astoria and in New York in general, you don't really see chains here other than Times Square and then McDonald's wherever.
Right.
But there's this weird corner of my neighborhood where there's an AMC movie theater, and then on that adjacent corner there is an Applebee's, a Panera, a Starbucks, a Pizzeria Uno, and then a big PC Richard and Sons.
It's just it's just a bit of suburban New Jersey dropped in the middle of
right.
Queens in our neighborhood. But yeah.
But if you want half price apps, Steinway's the place to be.
It's not bad. It's not a bad deal. But so in the Dominican, it was a fun experience, and people were. I sort of thought it could go either way as far as whether people there would be into the current playoffs or not.
Yeah, people were into it, but interestingly, I think they just associate Americans with American football. So I had more people who wanted to talk to me about American football, which I thought was interesting.
That is interesting. Yeah, that they're oh, that's your sport, kind of.
Yeah, I did get to I did get to watch the Bears beat the Raiders in John Gruden's final game.
Oh man,
in the Dominican Republic.
Oh, I guess I didn't quite realize that the Bears helped send him into resigning and into a job on Fox News pretty soon, I'm sure.
I mean, if the Bears beat you, you should resign.
Yeah, that should be this year's plan. Also, I want to give a shout out. I was a less glamorous trip, but maybe more direct to some of our listeners. I was in Chicago recently. I did a week at Zanies in Rosemont, and our friend Ken Schultz, the sort of the fifth Beatle of this podcast, who has his own podcast. But Ken Schultz opened for me one of the nights. That was very fun. We also got to see, or I got to see Jeremy and Pat of Wrigleyville Nation, of the podcast we guested on.
That's awesome.
They came by. I felt bad because it's sort of in the line as people were leaving, and they gave a quick shout, and there was these drunk girls talking to me who were fine, but would not they were monopolizing the goodbye table.
Right.
So by the time I messaged them once I got free of it, but they were already gone. But said a quick hi to those guys. Yeah,
that's very cool. That's a tough spot because it's like you don't want to be rude to someone who's like being nice to you, but it's amazing how people like don't feel that there are other people waiting to talk to you.
Oh yeah. And Jeremy and Pat, I think we're just like, like we're like, all right, there's a big crowd here. I'll get out of the way, which is exactly what I would do too.
Right.
But it was very nice to see them, and it's nice that they came to a show. I believe that my high school Hinsdale Central guidance counselor also came too. So it was a bizarre evening.
Now, so Jeremy and Pat were there. Were Ron and Pat there?
Ron and Pat were not there, and I am still hurt. So that's I would have loved.
It's just one of them nights, huh?
One of them nights. I have had. I got a Pat Hughes cameo. I via the Cameo app for my brother when he got married.
Cool.
And let me give you all we played it on the show many years ago, but many years ago, 1 or 2, I don't know. But he's great. If you want to pay Pat Hughes for a birthday, happy wedding message, whatever, I recommend it. So.
But if you want to get a Pedro Strop cameo for your friend Adam, which Kevin tried to do, he doesn't do it.
No, he's straight ghosted.
Very nice thought, though.
Very nice thought, and he still is on the app. I saw him on there recently, but it just didn't work for me. But yeah, so we're back to this now. And how are you enjoying the playoffs? I'll be the Dominican bartender to ask you.
I mean, I almost wanted to go back and listen to our preview. I think neither of us got the Rays getting knocked out correct. No. But otherwise, I feel like I've been pretty close. I believe I did call for a Braves Dodgers rematch in the LCS, and then
I think you got Astros over White Sox, right?
Yes. So I have 3 of the 4 teams.
You have 3 of the 4. But... I got the National League right. I got the AL wrong, and I had the White Sox picked to win the World Series, so I got that super wrong. But yeah, we both had Braves Dodgers. I had the Dodgers coming out of this series to face the White Sox,
and they still might. I mean, I will absolutely, even if they go down 3-0, I wouldn't completely count out the Dodgers. But because the last episode that we talked about current events rather than Cubs events was before the playoffs had begun, and there has been a lot to discuss. Let's start all the way back. Let's start with the wild card games. Did you have any like major takeaways? Obviously, Schwarber and Rizzo both homered, which was pretty cool and also infuriating.
Yes.
Garrett Cole just cannot get Schwarber out in a wild card game.
It is funny,
and that pitch was insane. How do you hit that pitch out?
I don't know. It was a very high fastball that he just absolutely tomahawked, and it was great to see. I mean, it was great to see. I think it was Full Count Tommy I saw in Cubs Twitter land who put a parlay down on Rizzo and Schwarber to homer, and something else that happened. So he won like a bunch of money, which is great. But yeah, I mean, it just in a Cubs centric way, watching Schwarber have the success he's had this year. Schwarber had these runs of success. He had 38 bombs in a year a couple years ago. It's not like he wasn't good with the Cubs, but it does seem like he reached a new level of consistency, and it is maddening that both we tried to save a couple bucks to jettison him when they still had him under contract for another year. That sucks. But it also sucks that the Cubs could not get there from a development perspective, get him locked into this level. And he was super locked in for like half a year at the end of the year when Castellanos was doing the same thing and Schwarber was slightly better, actually. So I don't want to say it never happened, but he's just been, since a cold start for the first couple of weeks, that guy has been an absolute monster at the plate, and the one we thought we had on our team the whole time.
Right. Well, and also kind of a tough break for Schwarber in that in his kind of most prominent playoff appearances, not including the World Series, which of course trumps everything.
Right.
Both in 2015, when he was playing left field and had never really played that position, and then that became the narrative forever because of one series that Kyle Schwarber was a terrible outfielder. I feel like it's kind of happening now with first base. He's settling in better, but that's a really tough spot to all of a sudden be in the League Championship Series playing a position that you've not played before. And it reminds me of the famous line in Moneyball where he's like, first base isn't that hard. Tell him. First base is extremely hard.
Yeah, it's extremely hard from a skill perspective. I think from an athleticism perspective, it's a place you can park someone who isn't super fast or isn't super, isn't doesn't have the quick twitch stuff. But like from a skill perspective, it's extremely hard. Like there's just a lot of unique responsibilities over there at first base, and just scooping balls out of the dirt is something you just aren't going to be good at unless you get thousands of reps doing it. So
right.
Yeah, we saw
just where to be on the field at first base is much harder than people realize. Like even that play in the division series where I don't know if I think it was a Rosarena who like ran into Schwarber coming around first.
Right.
That doesn't happen with most first basemen because they just know not to be standing there. It's like something you see in lower levels of baseball.
Yeah, something that you realize once you're out there playing first base, you're like, oh man, there's a lot more decisions to make than I realized. Right. And even just like, do I go into the hole for this, or do I trust the second baseman will get back and cover, that kind of stuff.
Right.
And Schwarber had a moment where he underhand flung the ball way over the way over the pitcher covering, and then the next time he made it correctly, pumped his fist, tipped his hat to the crowd, and the crowd went nuts. And if you're following baseball Twitter here, every team that has a Cub on it, someone that was a Cub like a year ago, up till now, everyone's loving him. Everyone loves all the Cubs. The Boston fan base loves Schwarber. Yankee fan base, there's some that like, because Rizzo didn't light it up as much, and after he got COVID, he's having a good start before that. But a lot of the Yankee fans I've talked to are very much enjoyed having Rizzo there and enjoyed the defense there that is very easily overlooked. The Giants fans love Chris Bryant. Javi was the best Met for the second half of the year, and then we got Pearl Necklace wearing Jock Peterson, who's going nuts even. So it's like this is
using Cubs bats too.
Using Anthony Rizzo bats, yeah.
And Chris Bryant. Did you know that?
He was using Bryant bats as well?
Yeah.
I did not know that. I saw the Rizzo one, but yeah.
Apparently he's using like Rizzo bats against righties and Bryant bats against lefties or some crazy thing like that.
I love it. Jack Peterson gets in the playoffs and just like he gets so relaxed that Jack Peterson on the year was worth 0.0 WAR. So he did not have a great year, but he gets in the playoffs and he's just like, obviously he was like the best hitter in the world in spring training, so he has a real inverted bell curve to this year, and he's killing it with Atlanta right now. And it's great that he's just like so relaxed about it that it turns him into a Superman in the playoffs. I will
watch Jock Peterson hit 3-run bombs against the Brewers any day of the week.
Love it. And I'd love to see. And I mean, I don't know if you want to talk about one of the other wild cards, but before we
first of all, the Cardinals getting walked off is never not my favorite thing. And Josh Hader giving up the series winning home run, also my favorite thing. So there's been a lot of stuff to be excited about.
Those were all really nice. Yeah. It just, I think as you tweeted, it's just a rough playoff lineup as far as teams. There's not really anyone I want to root for, but there's teams I wanted to root against that are gone. Like I was happy. Right. So I got to be happy for that. The Cardinals and Brewers have both been eliminated. Those are two big ones. And as you said, watching Josh Hader fail was beautiful. Watching Christian Yelich, the guy who yelled at Yu Darvish, no needs help hitting you, watching him just stare at a strike three. Carlos Beltran style from the 06 NLCS kind
good
of.
Pull.
Thank you. Watching him do that was just a beautiful thing to see. Also, Yelich, by the way, worth 0.6 WAR less than Ian Happ was on the season. And by one reading I saw it.
Ian Happ, who also, according to the most recent Compound episode, also has sent Jock Peterson bats. So you might see a Happ bat in the lineup as well. And it's interesting because Hader is someone who, as much as I dislike him immensely,
hater,
he seems like big hater over here. He seems like someone who like a lefty should not be able to hit.
It's just
and in
so
the playoffs,
funky.
The biggest hits I can think of are Juan Soto getting that hit off of him in that wild card game in 2019 that sent the Nats through, and then Freddie Freeman. And now, obviously, Juan Soto and Freddie Freeman are two of the best players in baseball.
Sure.
And I would put Freeman on my short list of like favorite non-Cubs. Like I'm a big Frederick guy.
Yeah, what's not to like about Frederick? He seems like a great dude. He's amazing at baseball. It seems like he just has fun playing too. Very, very pro Freddie Freeman. And the Braves should be ashamed at not locking him up. They still might, but he's a guy who's a free agent going into this year. And it's like, how does that happen even? And speaking of how does that happen, not locking people up, but there was Jed Hoyer talked about having to reimagine the lineup for the next great Cubs team, which is very funny because it doesn't take a ton of imagination when you can look at all the playoff rosters and they're just the roster you had. Basically, it's like you don't need an imagination. Do you have a notebook from a year ago? Like you can. It doesn't take a lot of reimagining, my man.
Right.
But yeah,
so much other stuff. Give me your thoughts on, let's see, Arozarena stealing home, the infamous check swing to end the Dodgers-Giants game. What are we going to next year?
Arozarena stealing home, I dug, and I don't have a lot of particular love for the Red Sox, but I was happy to see the Rays lose from, I don't know, kind of, I don't even know who I'm spiteful against, but there's people who fetishize the Rays for not paying money and being good and thinking that somehow, that everyone should be like that. Meanwhile, they've never won a World Series. And yet again, they duck out in the playoffs, and they probably would have been better if they had, Blake Snell in their pitching rotation, for instance. Right. So
maybe they can use some of that money they saved to give Tampa residents $5 to come to a game. Pay them.
Yeah, honestly, that's some forward outside the box thinking, outside the trop thinking. Everyone in Tampa's outside the trop. No one's in there. I guess that's the point. But yeah, I think like watching them lose, they had a lot of fun young players, and so I don't blame them. The Tampa's a fun team to watch on the field, but how the organization is run, they have a lot of smart baseball people, yes, but I'm not going to fetishize not paying for labor when you can.
Genuinely ironic that their manager's last name is Cash because they don't use it.
That is all the cash that they are willing to put on the field, really. It's just in the dugout for Kevin Cash. Absolutely. So I loved watching Arozarena steal home. That guy, another guy, Jack Peterson, he had a good year, Arozarena did, but he just turns another gear on in the playoffs. So that was great. And the check swing to end that Giants-Dodgers series, which might be the functional World Series, we'll see. But I mean, you're a human umpire. You're going to make a mistake. That mistake it just feels like he was zoned out. It was a call where I don't know how you can be that bad. I don't know how you can miss something that obvious. Like everyone knew it in the press box immediately. They were all shocked, and it's the only blown call you can't really take back too. So that sucked. Hot take.
Do you think there is a world in which check swings become reviewable, but like only in the late innings? It has to be like clearly conclusive if it's, to overturn it?
I don't know that I'd predict it, but I think that's definitely a world that can exist, because I think the world where replay is everything you can replay is possible, like that is functionally possible. Yeah. So I think, sort of like I would think about it like in football, when every scoring play is reviewed, so it could be a thing in baseball where the last play is reviewed, whatever it is, or like the last, in the last inning, you say the whatever outs or runs are reviewed automatically in that sense. Right. I'm not necessarily calling for all that. I would love it if there was, I feel like we'd have less of these calls if umpires were accountable in any way. And Gabe Morales, I believe, was the first base ump. And afterwards, he didn't talk to I think maybe he did talk to the media for a second, but I think his crew chief had to address, they were like, Gabe says he doesn't want to say whether he got it wrong. And it's just like, it's hard to pretzel yourself into taking that little accountability. He's saying basically I refuse to look at it. I refuse to acknowledge what my own thoughts are. I don't exist. It's just,
well, it's very like Trumpian to look at a fact and be like, I don't know. Nobody knows.
Nobody knows.
No, we all know. We all saw it.
Yeah. It's like the inauguration crowd, right? Where it's just like record breaking. It's like, no, we saw that it wasn't. I don't care, it's that level. It is a Trumpian level of accountability that comes from major league umpires. So that was very representative.
Yeah, but it's the equivalent of calling a lane violation on a last second free throw. It just doesn't. It's something that you really have to be absolutely sure about to make that call. And I understand that, to your point, if he somehow, which I don't know how that would be possible, somehow did just zone out or didn't see it, I could understand how he would also be afraid to not call it a swing if it was clearly a swing. If he really saw it, because then obviously it would have been the other way around, that Dodgers fans would have been like, we should have already been done with this game, and yet it continues. But I think the point is that why are certain things not reviewable? At least like in crucial situations, very much like in 2017, how Wade Davis had Curtis Granderson struck out, and then he had to strike him out another time,
Yeah.
and he did, and very likely Max Scherzer would have done that to Flores, but we don't know that, and that's
Yeah.
why games are played.
Yeah, there was some like terrible take I saw by like I'm only saying the Twitter user because I think he's typically good, but Christopher Kamka I think is his name, and he said Flores was I think it was like 1 for 19 off Scherzer.
Oh for 17.
0 for 7. 0 for 17 yeah. Off Scherzer before that, so he would have been out anyway. Well, motherfucker, Bucky Dent exists, which was an example you used, where it's like this. I mean, if we're just doing that, then just simulate the game on your PlayStation. Humans exist, and so we should watch the humans play, and it should, you can't just say it's never happened, so it won't, because if you could say that, then there's no reason to watch any of these games. And to the point of like, if you're going to keep human umpires, the only benefit to having human umpires is if in crucial situations like this, they're more careful and not in like whatever, not going, because like a robot would have called this a ball, obviously, but a robot might also call a lane violation, like you're saying, in like the most important, when it like doesn't matter in the spirit of the rules, but whereas a human might not. So the only reason to not have robots everywhere is if humans get this kind of shit right, and so he's not. And so robots.
I completely agree with that. And it does suck that like you should be allowed to say like, I am a human being, I did my best, but I made a mistake, and I regret having, like, that's what was so endearing about Jim Joyce and made me feel horrible for him, was when he blew the Galarraga perfect game, he made a point of very emotionally being like, look, this is not just any call, this is a history call, and I kicked the shit out of it, and I stole a perfect game from that kid.
Yeah,
and that was so refreshing, because we don't fucking hear it from umpires ever.
No, and he was an umpire who got cheered in that stadium the next day, and that's all it takes. And that's it for, I think, for people to sort of sympathize with umpires a little bit. But the thing is, they have to have shame, and most of these umpires don't. And the Major League Baseball Umpires Union is fucking awful. It's opaque. There's absolutely no accountability about anything. They never speak to the press. They're just victims of everything all the time, and feel like they should be, they should be infallible, like a 15th century pope, like, so it's just it's maddening that they don't learn this one human lesson. And I don't, if they're going to be on the field, they should have to answer questions. They should have to face the press after every game, like players do. Players get fined if they don't, in many cases, right? So the umpire should have to
cut to Gabe Morales just saying, I'm just here so I don't get fined. I'm just here so I don't get fined.
I wouldn't, I mean, that's basically the party line over that is their philosophy as umpires in general. So
well, and final note on that, I also enjoyed the example that our buddy Ken Schultz used in our group chat, which was like, Michael Martinez was probably not going to do much damage there against Mike Montgomery, but we were all shitting our pants. And it was so satisfying when the Cubs recorded that out. I think we can all agree that, yes, we would have celebrated, but it would have been so much less satisfying if the Cubs had won the World Series on a blown check swing call.
100%. Yeah, it just didn't feel done, It felt like, I don't know, it was a real blue balls of a way to end a game. So
and it changed the story from everyone just talking about what a fantastic Game 5 that was, to talking about one moment that probably didn't change the outcome of the game. But I wish everyone had just been able to talk about what a great series and game that was. And really, it just, I'm glad they at least both got there. I would have been infuriated if the Cardinals had pulled off some bullshit, and they were close to doing that. I mean, who knows what happens if the game goes on and there's no walk-off. So
Mike
at least we got to
might
see.
Still have a job. Yeah.
Man, that is rough. I mean, I know that the Cardinals think of themselves as the NL Yankees, and it's very like, well, the Yankees fired Girardi after losing in Game 7 of the LCS.
Right.
So. I was surprised by that. I wonder if Schilt gave a rousing firing speech in the clubhouse.
Yeah, the one that Randy Arozarena taped and leaked to the press.
That was Arozarena?
It was Arozarena recorded it.
Is that why they traded him?
I think, honestly, maybe kind of, yes. I think it was not a non-factor.
Wow.
He was a guy who broke the sanctity of the clubhouse. Arozarena recorded that and then was traded for Matthew Liberatore and something.
What did Schilt say? I remember it being ridiculous.
I forget. I think he was just like yelling and swearing, right? Like I just remember it being a bunch of swearing, which it was just like silly. I don't think like, it wasn't anything where I was like, wow, this guy's a fucking loser. I was just like, well, is kind of a goof, He's just like, cussing up.
And then they went on to be swept by the Nationals.
Yes. They got shot right out of the playoffs. But yeah, Schilt firing was weird. So that was, seems like he had a pretty good season with the Cardinals, and they said philosophical differences. He maybe didn't want to use analytics as much as the front office.
You know what it feels like to me is that decision was made before they went on that September run, and it wasn't going to be changed.
Yeah, and they were probably like, well, a run like this, you almost can't even count as real because it's such an anomaly. But weird. I mean, I thought, to my mind, Schilt has done a relatively decent job over there with what he's had. So it was a big surprise.
Yeah. Any other big? Sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, the last playoff question I had for you is, how do you feel about the White Sox Astros series? Obviously, the Astros are still alive to everyone's chagrin, but how do you feel about that?
I didn't. That was a series that I probably got to watch the least of. I thought the Grandal thing was interesting, where he got hit by the ball running down to first. I don't know if you had any thoughts on that, but yeah, I mean, frankly, I just think the Astros are a better team. I don't think it's particularly complicated. I just think that the White Sox are, maybe this was their 2015 Cubs year.
Right. I
know they made the playoffs last year, but
but last year's weird. So yeah, I think there was one particular game that I thought La Russa really biffed it in terms of managing the pitching. Kopech should have come in earlier. And then when they asked, the White Sox blew a lead, they had a 2-run lead. And then when he was asked after the game about it, he said, well, we would have used Kopech if we needed to win the game. And it's like, Tony, I hate to tell you this. You're in the playoffs. you want to win this game. So I thought La Russa kind of biffed that. And, if I have White Sox fans in my life, I'm happy when they get to be happy. Am I sad to see the White Sox out of it? No, because of the bad White Sox fans I would have to deal with, basically. But I like the players on those teams. So, and I wasn't rooting for the Astros. The only thing I like about that series is Dusty Baker, who can be a D-bag in his own right every once in a while, but I still prefer to La Russa as a man. I do enjoy those two guys who hate each other. Dusty getting to walk off the winner. That's fine with me.
That is a good point. Yeah, it's interesting to think about the amount of times they've been across a dugout from one another, in different rivalry contexts.
He had a great one when it was Cubs versus Cardinals. A great one where Dusty got up on the front step and you could read the lips, and he was just like saying "fuck you," and like threatening him. And I was like, this is great.
I mean, if Dusty takes that toothpick out, he means business.
Absolutely, and he does when he wears the mask, which he sort of does sometimes and doesn't sometimes. So whatever.
It would be much funnier if he just had it poking through the mask.
Yes, like a little a toothpick hole, a custom Dusty Baker mask. And now as we sit here, as we're recording this Tuesday night, the Astros and Red Sox are playing the Red Sox, they're after, it's now going into game 4. The Astros haven't had a starter get through anything really. And next game's supposedly going to be more or less a bullpen game. And this is like...
Well, losing McCullers and then having to use Odorizzi, who got absolutely shellacked.
Yes.
I think probably did not help a lot.
Very much so. So it's I think that Astros lineup is scary. It's like you go 1 through 7 and it's a real rough... there's no, you don't get a breath of fresh air in that lineup until maybe the 8th spot. So it's just
Kike Hernandez is never going to make an out again. The Red Sox.
That's cool. I like
they
that.
Showed yesterday that I think the Red Sox have more than double the amount of home runs of any other playoff team. I want to say the Red Sox have like 18 or 19 home runs in the playoffs, and the next closest is like the Dodgers with 8 or something like that. I mean, for God's sakes, move over Slam Diego. What do we have? 3 in the series already? Grand Slams?
Yeah, they had two in back-to-back innings, and your boy Kyle Schwarber hit one yesterday. So yeah, they had three in this series, and they had 3 in the 162 games during the year too. So yeah, so I mean, I don't know. Are we both hoping for Boston versus Atlanta? The two
Braves
teams
versus a team that used to be called the Braves.
It used to be the Braves, yeah, an old school Boston crosstown.
I agree with our pal infield fly girl. The Atlanta Braves are supremely likable as a group of players, and the chop is just so frustrating.
This is the only thing I'll say about the chop. I understand there are definitely people out there who didn't mean to be malicious, and it was just a part of what that team did before they understood what it was. But now in 2021, the people enthusiastically chopping their way onto television, fuck them, because they know, and they love it. They love what who it hurts, who it makes uncomfortable. They think it makes them real brave freedom fighters to be doing it now. So I understand not everyone who's done the chop is a bad person, whatever, but the people most enthusiastically chopping over there right now, fuck them, absolutely. And I will be bummed if they get to be happy. So yeah,
we're back.
Yes, my connection went unstable because it's the media trying to shut down and all this Tomahawk talk.
I mean, it is very much the same vibe as like people who want to still have a Confederate flag, where they're like, it's just tradition. It's like,
yeah,
yes, it is tradition, and it represents something that's really bad.
And then they're like, no, earmuffs. Like, basically, it's just, they say it's tradition. Well, can I tell you what that means? No. I'm open to no new information. I'm open to no very old information, honestly. I'm just committed to it. And yeah, and I think that's there's probably a lot of enthusiastic Tomahawk choppers with that flag on their Ford F-150 on the way out of that suburban baseball stadium. So whatever.
Well, I mean, when you go to Confederate flag giveaway night, what do you expect?
Exactly. Yeah, the fucking Robert E. Lee bobblehead. That was tasteless that they did that. That they should not have done that. Should we talk some Cub stuff?
Yeah, we should talk some Cubs stuff. But before we talk about that, we've already talked about the landscape of the MLB playoffs. But have we talked about the manscape of the MLB playoffs?
We haven't talked about the manscape of the MLB playoffs. And I would, and the thing is, if you're trying to be a Tampa Bay Rays sort of owner about this and save yourself some cash, you can do it, but you can still sign a superstar of a Manscaped groomer. You can get that lawnmower 4.0, and you can get it with 20% off if you use the promo code Away Games.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times in the playoffs, guys like to grow their hair extra long. You're not in the playoffs. You're listening to a baseball podcast.
Yeah.
Keep that shit tight.
You're listening to a baseball podcast whose team isn't even in the playoffs. You could hardly be any less in the playoffs. We could hardly be any less in the playoffs. So yeah, keep that shit tight. Promo code.
Is Kevin wearing a pearl necklace right now? Sure, but that's just his choice.
Yeah, that's that. And I much like Jack Peterson. You know what? It's for a reason. I won't tell. That's that's it. What and man, is that such a good? I love that we've got. I did not have money. I wouldn't have bet that Jack Peterson would be flipping gender norms straight into the NLCS, but it is fucking I would not have thought beautiful.
So either. It is wonderful, and for the record, Kevin is using Matt Caesar's microphone.
I am. It's cutting in and out. It's an old one, but yeah.
Well, what do we got for Cubs news before we get out of here?
Well, the Cubs decided to function like, a full Major League Baseball team, and they finally signed a general manager after a year of just deciding not to for whatever reason. So we have Carter Hawkins is the new general manager of the Cubs. He comes to us from Cleveland. My take on it is, I don't know, it seems fine.
Did you slide into his LinkedIn DMs?
I didn't slide into his LinkedIn GMs, but DMs for the GMs.
GMs.
Yeah.
GM DMs.
Yeah, GMs are for general managers exclusively. But when I googled him, like right after, actually before he was signed, when I believe the Athletic put out a piece about the short list, I googled him, and the first thing that came up was his actual LinkedIn profile. And it's very funny to see a LinkedIn profile for people in this kind of a job, because it's like assistant general manager for the Cleveland Indians for like however many years, just like a normal thing. So yeah, that's fun. He, went to Vanderbilt. He's been in he was in with Cleveland for I think 13, 14 years. I think
young guy.
Yeah, like he's my age basically, and he Cleveland, one thing they've done great is develop pitchers in their system. Like you can go through Savale, Bieber, obviously. They've just had a lot. Plesac is another guy, Clevenger. These are guys who weren't like top prospects, but who they developed to being like extremely, like, I mean, in Bieber's case, truly elite, and Clevenger as well at one point. But it's like, it's hard to know with these things, who knows what secrets from what teams and stuff, but I think it's not a bad thing to take a guy from that organization to the Cubs, who have struggled mightily with player development. So
do you think he knows how to blow a 3-1 lead?
He's gonna, thank God, because it's one of the few we really needed someone to bring that skill to us. I think he does know.
How'd you feel about the Ricketts letter with a nice stamp of his name on there?
That was a nice stamp. Really appreciate him putting in the effort there. And it's like, I don't know, I guess technically that's cursive. I'm looking at it right now. The T is not. The T is just, that's print. And then the O and the M are together. And I don't believe he put Ricketts here. It was just Tom, because we're on that kind of a casual level. Did you read the letter?
I did read the letter.
I think your takeaway on our,
yeah, I don't know. It's like, if he is to be believed, then I like the letter.
Yes.
But I don't believe him.
Yes, it's basically, the letter is like, we will spend I think he says like, we will spend it intelligently or whatever. Make some reference to what Jed said about that. But basically, like, we intend to compete in 2022 is the message of it, that we will be active in free agency. Okay, my main takeaway of the whole thing is, how embarrassing is it, and should it be, that you own the Chicago Cubs? You've done it for 12 years. This has been your team for a long time now. 12 years. You own the Chicago Cubs, top 5 money-making team, probably above that. And you have to send a letter to your fans to say you're going to try next year? The fact that you even have to write this letter is a fucking goof and a half. What are you doing? How bad have you biffed it that you need to compose a letter as the owner of the goddamn Chicago Cubs to say, you know what, guys, believe me, we're going to try next year. And you know what? Doubly bad, people don't even believe it. So, like, I mean, the fact that you had to write the letter is an absolute embarrassing thing in the first place, from my perspective.
Yeah, and my one takeaway that I literally screenshotted was, there's a line in it where he says, like, unfortunately we failed to extend our playoff streak to a 7th straight year. And I was like, yes, emphasis on the failed to extend.
Yes, that was a very good poll over the Away Games Pod Twitter. Adam pulled out where it's like, this is all you need. We failed to extend. That was sort of the story of this whole season, this whole tear down. They failed to extend everybody. So,
well, and also, like, it's kind of just ridiculous to read it from him, where it's like, you are the guy who's in charge. So it's very much like if someone like broke up with you, and then at the end of the year they're like, I'm so sorry you've been through all this. It's like, you broke up with me.
You did it. Yeah, yes.
You made this happen.
Right. Yeah, that's a very good point. You don't need to write letters, bro. Just fucking pony up the money. We got an $80 million payroll going into next year. Add a 1 in front of that 80. Start there and then go higher. And then we'll see what's up, but it was a funny, unexpected letter to get. And it did feel almost like a post breakup check-in from Tom, where he's like, hey, I know things have been rough,
You good?
Yeah. Yeah, very much so.
Hope your family's well. It's just like the least amount of information you could convey. But before we go, I think it would be kind of an interesting thing to share. I saw you just tweeted from the Away Games account, just like kind of a collection of names of who the Cubs could theoretically get for like $100 million, if that is what can be spent, which I memean that can and should be spent.
And that's what Sahadev Sharma, who's someone that we can trust in the Cubs world. Basically, anyone, Sahadev and Mooney over at The Athletic, I think we can trust their reporting. They're good, they're on it, and he expects it to go to about 180. It seems like so.
So, what were the names that you had kind of tweeted out there?
So this again was from is a Twitter thread started by at Full Count Tommy. Give it a second shout out for that guy today. Never met the dude, but enjoy his Twitter work. We have and Joel Kilgallen, who we have met, was jumping in on there too. The names I put in there, and with sort of estimated salaries, which it's tough really to do these kinds of things without seeing what the money's going to be. But I have the Cubs. I'd say Marcus Stroman for 25, 25 per year. Corey Seager for 27. I'm gonna say he's not gonna reach. The record shortstop deal that was just signed. So 27 million a year I think is reasonable. Anthony Rizzo at 15 million a year for maybe let's say 2 or 3, and then you still have Schwindel on the team. The DH is coming, whatever. Then so we got Stroman 25, Seager 27, Rizzo 15. Justin Verlander's coming off Tommy John. He's did not pitch this year, and he expects to pitch next year. He will be a free agent. I put down 18 million for him on like a 1-year deal, possibly a big second option. Mark Canha from the Oakland A's, I'm just saying 12 million. That's an outfielder, can play all 3 positions, high on base guy. And Manuel Margot, who's a speedster, great defensive center fielder. I have him at 3 million. That's 100 million. All those names, that's 100 million. Basically. And so that's what we should expecting. And I'd also add someone like Rich Hill. If you give me Rich Hill, I think with him and Verlander, we have guys who've been productive late in age here. And Rich Hill was good this year, all year. Yeah. You can sign these guys for one year, ties you down to nothing. As long as you're not going over the luxury tax, I do not give a shit about you saving $1. You can talk me into the luxury tax, fine, but you should spend up to that on 1-year deals. And I think adding like a guy like a Verlander and a Hill would be great to do that behind a top end like a Stroman or Gausman. And you can flip those guys if it doesn't work. So
I like it. I like it. I wonder when we'll start seeing things happen. Obviously not till November, December at the earliest, but I'm hoping it's not like a glacial off season, but then also there's the we need to get a collective bargaining agreement. So all that super exciting shit, the CBA. But hope we work that out, because it is annoying to have like no one sign in the baseball off season for 2 months, which is what I feel like it's been like lately. So all right. Well, by next week, I guess we'll be into the World Series, right? Yeah, it should be. World Series time next week. So we'll talk about that and whatever else Cub stuff happens. Follow us at Away Games Pod on all the things, Twitter, Instagram, etc. And Adam, you're going to be in Chicago when now? After I just did stand up in Chicago? I'm going to be in Chicago at Zanies in Old Town on December 3rd and 4th. Headlining 2 shows per night, and still hoping to record an album that weekend. So more info on that TBD. But sweet, that would make the second member of this podcast to record an album at Zany's Old Town. That would be funny. Hell yeah! Go see Adam there. Watch all your baseballs. That's all we got this week. We'll see you next week.